Honestly, when it comes to dandadan will have you thinking about high school. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about when it comes to this because dandadan will put you in the mood of remembering what high school was like and being with deeper bonds was like. Because when you're in high school, it feels like the bond you have with your friends is extremely deep. And then when you become an adult, it's very hard to find adult friendships and have full bonds. My bonds came in, and sometimes it's also like that at the end of being a teenager, like when you're around 18, 19, you realize you don't really have real bonds with certain people. Because my real bonds was when I was a sophomore in high school and I was around 15, 16. I had like a group of friends and we really had a deep bond. Like it was pretty obvious that the bond was like genuinely deep, you know, compared to when I switched schools, went to a different school. I hung out with these dudes. I played basketball with them and stuff. It was like, yeah, I played basketball with them, but I didn't have a bond with any of them. In my opinion, we didn't have a deep bond. I never felt like any of them were actually my friends, mostly because they tried to clown me and shit a lot, and it put me into the perspective of like, yeah, these ain't really my friends. I have no animosity towards them. I have no negative energy towards them, but it's just realizing like, yeah, they wasn't really my friends. It was like I was the token black guy basically of their group. And in college I had a little group of homies that I hung out with, and they were pretty cool. We bonded pretty good together with them too, but it didn't feel like it was a real bond for real. Like a deep bond. It was more of like a bond, but it was like kind of detached a little bit, if that made sense. It was like we were all like independent dudes, but we had bonds with each other, if that makes sense. We would have like these super deep conversations with each other. And Don Denon is the perfect example of having those extremely deep bonds as a high schooler. I hope in Don Denon we get to see Momo, Okarun, Gigi, and the rest of the gang. I'm not going to spoil it because you guys probably haven't read the manga, but I hope we get to see the rest of the gang when they're out of high school as well, and we get to see them as adults. That would be really freaking cool if they did that. It could become like a super cool badass action show, and like 5-6 years from now, we could see the anime, and it would be literally well, how fast it's going, it might only be like 4 years, but we could see the anime. How fast the anime is coming out is what I mean. But 4 or 5 years from now, we could see the anime and see them all as like adults and them kind of vibing as adults. Because what brings me back to Danton every time is just the bond that the characters have, and when they sit around the table, kind of joking around, playing around. And like I said in the other Danton video, is the creator knew how to make very wholesome moments and knew how to bring familiarity to us when it comes to all the different positive story beats and emotions that people like. I mean, one thing we like to see is we like to see all of our characters in our story kind of hanging out with each other, being stupid, whether it's like them sitting at a table and bonding, whether it's them going out to a carnival or something like that, or having a little fireworks show or whatever the case may be. We like to see them have fun with each other and hang out and have a close bond. That's what we love in our romance manga. And this manga is such a amalgamation of so much different things, sci-fi manga, shonen manga, romance manga. It makes you love it because it's all those things, but the main source of why you love it is because of the teenage bond, and it brings you back to your teenage years. It brings you back to the bond that you had with some of your friends when you were teenagers, you know, especially the bond between you and a woman, a girl, you and that girl hugging all the time, caring about each other, just having this super deep bond, talking to each other, getting very deep with each other, letting the girl know you really care about her and like her, and she reciprocates that energy. It's always nice to see that, especially nowadays, because nowadays it seems like a lot of men and women are not bonding correctly, in my opinion. It's like a lot of women are gold digging women. I'm not an incel, but I'm just saying. And then a lot of dudes are like wimpy and weak. You know what I'm saying? Just over my observations. Now, again, like I always tell you guys, it's all about frequencies and vibrations. So you're vibrating on that negative energy if that's what all you see all the time. Because I do see positive relationships, but they're very rare. And I try to look for them. I look out for them. I look at positive relationships. I try to look for them, and then I also try to create my own in my own life. But the bonding seems like it's different when you're an adult, especially nowadays, because nowadays it seems like everything nowadays is very fast paced. A lot of people will date really fast, like they'll date for like 2 weeks, do everything possible, and then they don't like each other anymore. It seemed like it was a lot slower when I was a teenager. And I also realized life in general is just more fast paced because now everything is more expensive. The economy is very hard to live in. Everything is super expensive. I mean, it's like back in the day it wasn't, but now it is. So everything is super fast paced. People are trying to quit an old job and find a new job that gives them more money now. People are trying to get more popular online quicker now because of the economy and because of how hard it is to live. I mean, I've seen a difference just based on that. And it's funny. It's funny that in general, life has genuinely got harder and faster because it feels like when you get older, life goes by faster in general. A couple of months ago, bro, I was like 18, 19, and now I'm 28 years old, my own apartment, just kind of chilling by myself. It goes fast. It feels like I was in high school like 5 years ago. Bro, it has been 10 years since I've been in high school, which is crazy. It does not feel like that. It does not feel like that. But like I said, dandadan brings you back to those moments. It's just Momo and Okarun. Seeing them bond is like, it makes my heart skip a beat. It makes me happy to watch. It's so enjoyable to watch. It feels so good in your chest to watch them bond with each other and be very honest with their emotions about how they feel towards one another. Especially Okarun, Momo shows her emotions through physical contact. She gives him hugs, holds his hand, holds him on the ground when they've been in crazy fights. His way of expressing love is he actually talks to her. Like, he is very good at verbal communication. That's his way of how he shows Momo that he loves her so much. He verbally says how he genuinely feels. She shows how she feels through physical contact. That's something I've noticed a lot. I'm going to do a deep dive on Gigi because he's a very interesting character, a very peculiar character, and he's like the most white guy character ever. Like, he feels white guy coded. He looks like a white guy. It's just, there's so much I could say about Gigi. I do like him as a character. I like Turbo Granny and I like Seiko too. I might do videos on them too, character dives on them, because they're very interesting characters. But yeah, man, it's like dandadan is such a good series because it's like the characters are so good and the characters are enjoyable and the creator knew what he was doing. And see, as writers, we know how to break stuff down and rebuild it. We know how to take things from different areas and make something new with it. That's how I write my story. I take all the good things from different stories, I take from them and use them. I think Oda does that too as well. That's how you are as a writer, how you can be a better writer, just taking all the good stuff and putting it together and just knowing what people like when they watch something or read something, and knowing what emotional beats people like to feel. There are certain feelings that people love to feel. One of them is mystery. Another one is love. Another one is reminiscing and having the feeling of nostalgia. And then another one is also putting themselves into the perspective of the character. So, observing, awareness, observation. And, the creator of dandadan knew that. He knew, okay, they're going to love the romance aspects because I have literally studied this. I read 100 romance manga to create this romance. I know how to make it perfect, and he does it beautifully. I'm going to be honest, I need to read 100 manga to sharpen my brain to know exactly what you guys like, when it comes to me writing my own fantasy novel. Even though, like I said, I'm doing very well. I know how to create characters pretty good. I know how to do romance pretty good. But there's always more I could learn, But I don't want this video to be too long. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more character analysis and more talks about dandadan. Peace and blessings.